Hello everybody. I wanted to go ahead and share a journal entry that I made this morning. That's something I never do. I've thought about doing it before because sometimes it's very insightful about some things, but sharing journal entries is just something that's uh, it's just something I don't do. I know some people do, and that's good. It's good to share. Some things. Of course, you want to have discretion. But um, I think it's good to share my experiences with these other beings, how it continues to unfold, how it's different at different times, even with different beings that might even be doing different things. The new message says that these beings are not all on the same page. They're competing amongst themselves over their objectives here. Some of them might be trying to gain your allegiance in ways that others aren't. Maybe some are a tad more aggressive than others. Maybe they're all aggressive, but just in different levels. Uh, so you just got to understand that there's more than one group, and they're all trying to stake their claim in this world because we're emerging into a greater community of worlds, and certain races want to kind of head that off so that they can have dibs, so to speak, on how things are going to be governed, how things are going to be, rationed out, how this world is going to be interacting in that greater environment concerning our resources and concerning our relationships. They really want to have a hold on that in some way, one way or another. And it's more than one race that wants this. Certain other races are not involved in this way. There are other races within our local region of space that are not involved in that kind of activity. Probably because they are much more self-sustaining. They're not a part of these collectives. They're not seeking resources as desperately as maybe certain other groups are. And that's something to understand about the intervention. The new message says they're not evil in the way that we might think of it. They're not just here doing this just to be rar, just to have control or just to be evil. They're not like psychopaths in the way that humanity might have this within it, like hurting people just for the sake of hurting people, gaining more and having more just for the sake of having more, just for the sake of feeling power. There's more of a drive to it than that. They have reasons for doing what they're doing. They think what they're doing is absolutely noble and right because they're convinced, like the Allies of Humanity briefings say, they are convinced that we're going to destroy this world. But that's kind of funny because they're actually, some of them anyway, are actually speeding up humanity's decline. They're really speeding it up. They want us to look hopeless and helpless and destructive, so that with the rules governing interaction in this region of space, there are certain rules. One of the rules is that if a world appears to be destroying itself, if it appears to be destroying its own resources, then other races have the right to come in and do what they can to get control of the situation. So the new message says that these are very strict rules, but they can be worked around. They can kind of be manipulated. And that one rule is kind of like the new message says it's a controversial clause. It's a clause that is very controversial because it can be manipulated. I've been targeted in many different ways now. It's been ongoing over the last 2 years especially. And I've uploaded a little bit about what some of that is like in this group. And I talk about how they can do a good cop, bad cop thing. Sometimes they'll try to make you feel really important and really special, that you're being focused on by a group of beings that somehow have a kind of respect for you, they have a place for you, they just want you to become an appendage to their social structure. I've experienced that a few times. One thing that actually happened last night, like I talk about in that journal entry, is that they were getting rather close to me, very close to me. And you got to understand that the way knowledge works, when that starts to become activated within you, you could become aware of things that maybe you weren't so sensitive to before. I've always been a very sensitive person, but now I'm becoming more sensitive. So becoming aware of things doesn't mean you condone their actions. It doesn't mean that like you're allied with them. It just means that you're very sensitive to their presence. That's what I want to make clear. It just means that you're sensitive to their presence. You're coming to understand their environment. It doesn't mean I'm allied with them. It doesn't mean I condone their actions. It just means there's an understanding that's developing. When the beings showed up last night and got very close, I had a familiar feeling. It was the feeling that I had that night after making all those replies to David in one of these threads back, like, I think it was like November 17th, where I was talking about hybrids, and I was talking about this one girl sharing her abduction story, all her abduction stories throughout her whole life. You know, they've been ongoing, and she talked about this, but she also said that she's a gifted medium, and she's a gifted psychic, and she just has these kind of abilities. But at the same time, she doesn't look altogether human. And the fact that I brought that up, I knew I was getting deep. And that night, I had a being on me more powerfully than I've ever had a being on me. It really wanted me to shut up. Like, it was like, it almost felt like this being was deeply offended that I was doing this. So you could tell that these beings see women like her and see people like me and other people that they target. They see you as their property, especially if you're a hybrid. They created you, quote unquote, right? They're a part of your creation. You're related to them. Even if you have, like, say you have 85 or higher percent humanity, you know, you're 85% human. It doesn't change the fact that they truly believe you're still their property. You could look very, very human. You know, the new message says that a lot of hybrids, they will have exaggerated abilities within the mental environment because of their part of their ancestry that is actually off-world, coming here and mixing with humanity. And that off-world presence has such a long history of very strong mental development. Even if they're not spiritual beings, even if they're, you know, part of these collectives that are just out there, it doesn't change the fact that their mental abilities are far more pronounced than yours. And if, for thousands of years, they've been developing this in this way. So if they come here and start mixing their genetic material with humanity, the hybrids that would come out of that would also have rather pronounced abilities. Some of the hybrids being created are unknowing hybrids. They're just kind of mixed within the population. Other hybrids are very knowing and are very much a part of the intervention. They know what they're doing. So there's this general mixing. There's mixing going on in a few different ways. But that being that was focusing on me so intensely, and that had like a kind of anger within it, it was penetrating my mind, and really, it was rather aggressive. And like I talked about in the video, where I talked about what happened that night, I got a really good feeling of this being's environment. Just the fact that it was focusing on me, it kind of opened him up to me as well. So when you have a being focusing on you like this, or a group of beings, it's not just you opening up to them. You're getting information from them as well. They're in a way opening up to you in a sense. And if you're sensitive enough, you could start picking up a lot of things about them, their environment. Last night it was rather powerful. I had the same feeling that I got from that being that was being really aggressive with me. The exact same feeling, and it's different from a lot of the other ones I've experienced. This being had a definite feel about it, probably of a different race. It had a very, had like a very signature feeling, even though he was being very aggressive. Last night I got the same feeling, and I was like, okay, these ones are here. And I could tell that it was more than one. But here's the funny thing. They weren't being aggressive this time. They were not being aggressive. What they were doing is that they were getting very close to me. And I started picking up on things about their environment, which is very sterile, even their bodies. I even began to smell. I was picking up things that were rather profound. I was even getting like a smell of and even a feeling, like a literal feeling of their bodies. And what their ships are like, how sterile they are. Like I say in that journal entry, it was almost like a smell of wet snow. Imagine like a very, very sterilized environment. It was like a feeling, you ever smell ozone? Like those ozone generators? It was slightly reminiscent of that. It was like a smell of snow, like a fresh snow. But it was more than that. There was something else about their bodies and how they're functioning as beings. And I was in this space for at least a couple hours. I couldn't sleep. I eventually did sleep, but being within this space was very, you could say, instructive. And I don't know why they weren't being aggressive. The way I talk about it in that journal entry is it's almost like if a bully finally invited you into their house and was like, this is just how we live. Like, this is our environment. This is why we do what we do. This is why I'm a bully. It's not easy, living how we live. And I figure that they might be doing this because they realize I'm not being bullied so easily. And on top of that, I'm sharing things about how to resist, how to really resist. I'm looking at things that are really manifestations of the intervention within our world. If you want to resist the intervention, you have to resist the actual manifestations of it within our world through their human representatives. Things like Common Core. When you really look at Common Core and where that came from, it's very shady and it's very sketchy. It really is about destroying the minds and the potential of youth within this country. It's not a conspiracy theory, and that's not even like an overstatement if you understand it. If you watch that talk that Duke Pesta gave, it's not a conspiracy theory, okay? You got to watch the whole talk. I know, you know, you got to. It's challenging to your attention span, maybe, but you have to watch the whole thing, really. And I'm posting things about how they could have been involved in certain other things going on in this world, and how they may have been involved in it for quite a while. So what they could be doing is trying to show me sort of like the good cop, bad cop thing. They're trying to show me a good cop side, so to speak, where they're like, they just want to show me who they are, why they are the way they are, that their environment is not the easiest environment to live in, that they're kind of like in a compromised evolutionary situation. You have to really consider that. When I was really deeply feeling their environment for hours, in a way I could feel what it's like to be them. They're very collectivized. I mean, there's pretty much no individuality among them. Like, you know, at a certain point I could even feel like many sets of eyes, just kind of like looking at me. They weren't being aggressive, but they were just kind of looking at me, you know. While at the same time I'm just getting very, very strong feelings about them and their bodies and their environment, and how stripped down it is. No, there are like no elements of culture, nothing like what we have. No elements of culture, no elements of individuality, creativity. But they feel very secure and safe and supported within their own social structure, within their own collective mind. And I could feel it. I could literally feel it. They're not like fearful beings. They're not like disturbed beings, so to speak. They're just very. They're just, you know. It was fascinating, actually. And the reason they were showing me this, or why I was picking up on it, is it really just has to do with becoming familiar with life in the universe. Becoming familiar with life. Becoming sensitive to life. What life is like. What life is actually like out there. Not all beings are in that situation, but a lot of beings are. And it's like they and also knowledge very much wanted me to get an inside view of it. As counterproductive as their presence here is, it's also productive in that it will get you to become familiar with what life is like. They're not evil in a sense. In the same way, you know, a bully might not be an evil person, but he's doing what he's doing because of his home environment, because of how he was raised, because of things like that. So what I was being shown is just the environment, and kind of like why they're doing what they're doing. In a way, they were saying, this is why. This is why. They weren't literally saying that, but letting me deduce it just from feeling their environment so deeply. and getting even a sense of their physical bodies, which I found very fascinating. They don't eat, not the way we do. They don't have digestive systems in the same way we do. Everything about how they live is just so different. So different. Very stripped down. Very, very stripped down. You can imagine that them looking at humanity with all of our obsessions and all of our like trivial things that we get involved in, it's just perplexing to them. And I could sense that as well. You know, you see the contrast, you're like, whoa. that's a major contrast. Of course, you have beings like that with this kind of social cohesion that you can barely fathom, coming to this world and seeing how disorganized, how chaotic, how aggressive we can be, how obsessive we can be over trivia. They just don't understand it. So the way they see it, they're just going to take advantage of a situation. And they are. The new message says they want our civilization to more look like their civilization. Of course we need more social cohesion. Of course we need human unity. But they already have cohesion. And they can influence human cohesion and unity, so to speak, with their influence. But it will have an entirely different result than if we took it upon ourselves to create this. They want human unity only with their guidance. They want human social cohesion only with their guidance and only with their influence. The new message says that these beings will actually eventually come to respect humanity if we can do that on our own. If we can achieve that on our own, we will actually gain their respect. But when they come here to the situation and they see humanity, they have very little respect. They even have very little understanding of our cultures. They don't understand our art. They don't understand our music. They don't understand our affinity for each other. They can only understand these things insofar as they can be manipulated. They can't really relate to it. Like how they don't understand our affinity for each other. They don't understand our sexuality. But they only understand it in terms of like the mechanical nature of it. How it works. And they can use that. So, these beings, they might show some kinds of interest in you. And like what happened last night, there was a kind of transparency and a kind of honesty with what they were showing me, or what knowledge was allowing me to experience and see. Because honestly, they might be around like that a lot. They might be. But maybe I'm just not sensitive all the time like that. But last night, I was very sensitive for whatever reason. Maybe it had to do with something with the step that I was on, something I was going through. But last night, I was rather wide open. And I was picking up a lot. A lot was coming through with these beings. Okay? And maybe they noticed it as well. The new message says that these beings are actually, in a way, afraid of knowledge because it outstrips their own abilities. It's stronger than their own abilities. It's stronger than them. And that's why they don't want knowledge to emerge in this world. That's why pacification program teachings will seem to mirror some of the words that, you know, maybe the new message uses, or that knowledge may use, human unity or this and that. Like, it might use some of the same language, but with a totally different understanding. It's just trying to cut off, it's trying to head off our actual evolution so that they can just put themselves in a position to be the to be the guides of it. So yeah, they can talk about knowledge, certain kinds of knowledge, but they're not talking about real knowledge with a capital K. They're not talking about real spirituality. That is something that we have that is so much more powerful than what they have. So, and that's the thing. That could very much be something that's taking place with some people. They have been focusing on me so intensely, doing all different kinds of manipulation. And the fact that I just, in a way, just keep rising out of it like a phoenix, you know, like, nope, that didn't work, I'm not falling for it, you didn't bully me there, you're not bullying me here, I'm not afraid of that, I'm not afraid of this. And when they try to seduce me with things, when they try to make me feel really, really good in certain ways, which they have done, I'm not falling for that either. Not falling for it, don't want it. And I'm continually posting things about their activities, fleshing things out, trying to look at details of what's going on, things that the new message is not explicitly talking about, but that we have to figure out on our own. You know, the new message even says, we can't tell you everything. You have to come to learn things on your own, with your own discernment. So, what they could be doing is changing their tactics a little bit. If they can't win me in this way, and they can't bully me in that way, maybe they're just like, well, we'll just get really close and be a little more transparent about our environment and who we are and why we're here. That's really the feeling I got. We'll just let them know what our environment is like, how we live, how unbelievably simplistic it is, the kind of situation that we're in out there. It's not easy for us out there. That's why we're here. Because you have a world of immense resources, which is so rare out there. Look at us. Look at our situation. Of course, if you were us, you'd be doing the same thing. You got to think about that. If we were them, we would be doing the same thing. But we don't have to be that way. They've been evolving in a situation just like that for thousands of years, probably. Thousands of years. So long that they're so dependent on technology, and their bodies are so weak in certain ways. They're not robust like us. They can't live here. They're not well adapted to any physical environment. The only environment they're adapted to is those sterile ships. That's it. And all they have is their social cohesion. And that provides them with a tremendous amount of safety, security, support. They feel very, very secure when they're with each other like that. And I could feel it. I could literally feel it. There is a strong sense of security that they have amongst themselves. And they kind of want humanity to feel that way too, by stripping all of our, accoutrements and all of our culture, and they just want to strip us down to the most basic of things, so that we can see, yeah, we're just the same, right? Me and you, we're the same. It's like, yeah, we can understand what binds humanity, how there is something within us that makes us united. But there is something about humanity where we really support and cherish individual creative expression. That not all humans are exactly equal in all ways. Some human beings are really, really good at math. Some human beings are really, really good at literature and language and art. Some human beings are just really good at music and stuff. I mean, we're just very, very different. But with them, it's not like that. Individual expression and any variations of expression are just kept very, very minimal, like almost non-existent. That's what I was getting a sense of. And you got to understand that they feel so secure and so good in that kind of environment that that's what they want to impart to humanity, because they think that our differences and our individuality is literally what's making so much chaos. Like we just can't get on the same page. We're just so contentious with each other. But within that is actually a gift, individual creativity and spiritual intelligence, knowledge being able to come through the individual in a way that will help unite humanity even more, that you can give very, great gifts to the world through your unique nature, through your individuality, but there's a part of you that's beyond just being an individual, that's beyond just being a separated self. But the intervention and these races, they have an experience of unity that is like, it's a compromise. It's something that had to be done out of necessity. We could achieve that out of necessity, but it doesn't have to be like what they have. All worlds out there have to do it in one way or another. They either do it without a spiritual connection, they either go the route of technology, and they become very, very socially controlled, and that's how they gain their security. And it works. It works. It's not something you want to do. It's not it's not a path you want to take necessarily. But there are elements of it that are necessary. Certain elements of it. Like humanity is like through sheer necessity going to have to become much more cohesive as a race. Yes, we can still have creativity, we can still have individuality, but we're going to have to get more and more on the same page out of necessity. But what these other beings are experiencing is like that on some kind of ridiculous level, where individuality has been completely bred out of them. Completely. Their understanding of things is very rudimentary, even though they feel very secure within their environment. They have a very fixed way of being. They have a very fixed relationship with resources, how they live. They're not listening to music every day. They're not listening to tunes. They're not checking out artwork. They're not getting inspired by philosophy or anything like that. And like nothing that inspires us inspires them. They have their own thing, and they're very, very locked within it. Don't think that you can convince them of the nobility of humanity. The only thing that could convince them, the only thing that could give them respect for you, is for humanity to get on the same page, and for really, when knowledge begins to emerge within you, and it begins to spread throughout the human family, they will have no choice but to respect that. And what knowledge does is that it forces transparency. That's something I've noticed about it since taking steps to knowledge. You enter, some people might have this experience. You enter certain states of awareness where it's like there's automatic transparency. Everything is stripped away. All pretense is stripped away. All you're experiencing is the spiritual source and core within other human beings, even if they're thousands of miles away. And like the new message says, this is even if there are other races that are light years away. That space means nothing. Space and time is nothing to knowledge. You could really actually commune with other beings that are also allied with knowledge, that are like millions of light years away. Because space and time is nothing to knowledge. But if you're on that same wavelength, yes, there can be a recognition, a deeper recognition that is beyond what your intellect can comprehend. And when knowledge starts to emerge like that within individuals, you know, there will be a kind of forced transparency to these other beings. You'll see right through everything they're doing. I could literally feel them last night, like there were multiple ships, and there were a few of them, and they were just checking me out. They were not being aggressive. They were more curious. And it's almost like I was allowed to just feel them for a few hours, very deeply. There was no sense of aggression. There was no sense of fear that I had. I wasn't really afraid. I was just getting a lot of information, a lot of sensory input on a few different levels, okay? About their environment and how they think and how they feel, how their bodies function in a certain way. Like it was really quite informative to be able to experience that. It had a whole feeling about it. This is something that is like reminiscent. If anybody's ever taken like a really good amount of mushrooms or a psychedelic, that it opens you up in such a way that you become very sensitive to the life force. Anybody who's had like a really profound experience on that kind of thing, like with ayahuasca, for example, you become very, very sensitive to the life force and to spiritual energy, and things become very transparent on a level that you don't normally have access to it. And that's basically what I was experiencing last night. I wasn't literally tripping, right? I wasn't like having hallucinations, or, you know, there wasn't like wavy things in my vision. The walls weren't breathing, or, you know, nothing like that. But there was something about the experience that was reminiscent of the sensitivity, like the really intense sensitivity you can have. I mean, when some people take that stuff, it's like they become psychic. You become very sensitive to the minds of others. You become very sensitive to just the life force that's around you, the thing that's animating all life. And that's really the thing. The source within you is the same source that's within these beings. Even though they don't have a spiritual practice that honors it, or that you know, helps it to express itself through an individual's nature, that source is still within them. It's still a latent possibility within them. The life force is within them because they're alive, right? They're alive. They have a life force. Knowledge is within them, the source of all life. You know, it's there. But when you're becoming very sensitive to that within your own life, you can cut through their mental everything. Any kind of manipulation, anything they might be doing. It's just like a hot knife through butter. It's just... That is an ability that they don't have. As much as their minds are highly developed, as much as they've been trained in what it is they're doing, as long as they've been evolving in this environment that they've been evolving in, your spiritual source and your ability to reclaim this in your own life far outstrips anything they could possibly throw at you. You could see right through it, and you could even experience it. Just like seeing it, clear as day. Imagine, you know, if there's some kind of, you know, shady criminal organization going on that's using fronts. You know, it has certain kinds of manipulation. Maybe it's using stagecraft, or it just has a front, right? Just imagine pulling that front away. There's no fronts. You can just see the activity so clearly that's going on behind closed doors. You can see how they think. You can see what's going on. You can see the deals they're doing. You can see everything. You know, it's just clear as day. You don't need to interpret it. You know, you don't need to go down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theory in order to try and deduce what they're doing and put the pieces together. It's like, no, it's just in your face. It's just, well, and you can see it, you can experience it, you're feeling it, you're getting downloads of it. It's just right there, clear as day. That's what knowledge can do. That's what knowledge is capable of. And that's what they're afraid of. If they're afraid of anything, that's what they're afraid of. They don't want that. So they will use humanity's ignorance for their benefit. They want the world to be full of noise, full of contention, full of arguments, full of, because they don't want that hot knife cutting through the butter. It can seem really easy to keep us in a frazzled state, like the new message says. It seems like they're just shooting fish in a barrel here. It just seems so easy for them to manipulate people and to steer things and to promise certain influential people this, or promise them technology or global domination or whatever. But when you start getting in touch with this deeper movement of life, it just cuts right through it. And it's not about revenge. It's not about getting revenge. Divine justice is not about revenge. It's not about vengeance. It's not about getting back at them. It's about seeing clearly, objectively, being able to see what's going on and taking proper action in your own life, in whatever way that might come out for an individual. So I just wanted to share this, that, there was a level of transparency that took place last night that was unlike, I've had other experiences where that were pretty intense, but last night it was exceptional. It was rather exceptional. So you have to understand that if you can see what they're doing and you're not afraid of them and you just have a clear vision of what's going on, they can't manipulate that so much. They've been throwing stuff at me for a long time, especially over the last couple months. It's just every single night. And it's not the same thing, it's just different stuff. And the fact that I just keep, it's not working, and I keep moving forward, And last night was just a really interesting thing that took place. I just got to see why they are the way they are. The kind of environment they're living in. They're not evil, they're not demons, they're just in a situation. And if you were in that situation, you'd be doing the exact same thing. The new message says that they're very like humanity in that sense. It's just about resources. It's just about gaining influence in whatever ways they can because of their situation. But being, as I was, like really feeling their environment, it didn't feel necessarily so aggressive or so evil. It was just an environment. A very interesting environment, I'd have to say. I have to say that it was fascinating. It was very. Again, I'm not condoning their actions. I'm not saying I want to go live with them. I don't. But being that sensitive to life is something that is, an important thing, to be able to be that sensitive to life moving around you, and the intentions and the environment of other beings. It's a very powerful thing. So, thank you for watching.